So this last session here, this is our third one. The first two on our comment sheets, on our survey sheets, and me kind of querying people afterwards. Although most of the people liked most of the content, the one that they wanted to hear more often and more about was about lead generation and awarding franchises. What is the selling strategy? What is the process? How do we do this? Now, we're going to give you some inside secrets because, Franchise Growth Solutions is all about selling franchises. We're what's known as an FSO, a franchise sales organization. And I think we do a really good job at it. So we're going to share some practical and, again, actionable ideas from some people that we use to do lead generation. And then also from actually the person who is the senior sales consultant with Franchise Growth Solutions on what the process is. And hopefully for those of you who want to give this a shot on your own, although I don't recommend that, I think you should hire us. But if you decide you want to try to do this on your own, this will give you some information about how to do it and how to do it the right way. And I will tell you, and I don't apologize for what I'm about to say, the worst person to sell a franchise is the franchisor. Keep the franchisor, and now for a startup, obviously, it sometimes can be challenging because maybe you can't go out and hire a salesperson or even an FSO. Although, for us, we cost less than a full-time employee for McDonald's costs in a year. So you get us for less than a whole bunch of Big Macs. My point is, and you'll hear that selling a franchise is not just about beating people up and talking to them until they're just so worn out. It's really about education. It's about the proper cadence of telephone calls and emails and respectful replies, what we call staying intelligently in touch. As Aimee just kind of lip-synced that with me. And I will tell you, you'll hear some stories. Aimee just closed the deal, 2 months ago with Nitty? When was that, 3 months ago? It was a 2-year deal. Took 2 years to close the deal. A lot of people would have given up on that, okay? So anyway, who we have up here today, we have a lot of good people. We've got Sean McKay, who is with SiteHub. I think Sean's around. Here he is. So Sean will tell us about his company. We've got Aimee Kirvan from Kirvan Consulting, who is the senior franchise consultant with FGS. We've got Rafael Viaud from Executel. They also work in the lead gen space, in a sense, because they'll do cold calling. I think they do some sales for Ben. And then Nick Pesko from Sobol, and thank you very much for being here, Nick. I appreciate you jumping in at the last minute like that. I think you heard Nick mention that they're sort of on the path of awarding their 100th unit pretty soon. So I'm going to ask everyone, let me just do this again here. While I'm doing this, I'm going to ask everyone to just introduce yourselves again, talk a little bit more about what you do. Talk amongst yourselves.
I'm Aimee Kirvan. I am the senior sales consultant for FGS, as Gary just mentioned. I work very closely with Sean here, who's going to introduce himself too, because we work on lead gen together with a number of our clients. But happy to be here, happy to answer any questions, happy to talk to you guys about lead gen and our sales strategy and how we work with each one of our clients.
This feels very official. Hi, everyone. Sean McKay. I'm the CEO of SiteHub. We've been around since 2012. We do all sorts of different marketing, advertising initiatives, and a large portion of our business is in franchising. We do a lot of Google and Meta ads. I hope to be talking about that and tracking and targeting and landing pages and all that good stuff. Thanks. Turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone. Nick Pesko, Director of Marketing for Sobol. Been in this role for the past decade. As the Director of Marketing, I manage our lead acquisition strategy. I also manage our sales pipeline, the life cycle of those leads, whether they sit in our pipeline or move on to various stages in that pipeline, but I'm very actively involved in our sales process and work hand in hand with our Director of Development to effectively grow the Sobol brand.
Hi all, my name is Rafael Viaud. I am the VP of Business Development at Executel. Executel is a managed service provider for a little bit over a decade already. We also created our own voice over IP, and lately I have been partnering with different franchisors and franchisees in the outsourcing space. I did start it on the sales piece, partnering up with Gary, but now I support them from project management, accounting. I help them out with everything that has to do administrative assistant, and even tech support for several locations, and social media as well, management.
Great. So again, thank you all for being here. So today what we're going to talk about, or what our takeaways will be, are things like not just the lead generation, but what we call speed to lead, the right follow-up. By the way, this is where a lot of franchisors fail. Leads come in, and they sit there for 2 days or 3 days before someone gets back to them. We'll talk about sort of the process, something that I always say over and over and over again. I think Aimee had it emblazoned on a plaque for her office. Time kills deals, and it truly does. And things like remarketing to old leads, and really the candidate's journey and the evaluation, because the way I look at this is you are educating the buyer. You are looking to see if what they're about is aligned with your brand. It's not just about selling a franchise and collecting a franchise fee, because that will come back to haunt you many times over and over again. And I know for the emerging brands and for the startups, you're just dying to sell that first franchise, okay? Well, don't sell that first franchise and then have it kill your whole system. You want to be very selective about who you bring into your system, and there's a way of doing that in a reasonable amount of time. We talk about the sales cycle being somewhere in the 90-day range, and in that time period, you should be able to gather enough information. So why don't we start with you, Sean, and talk about, you don't want me to start with you? No, we're going to start with you. We'll start with you about things like lead gen digitally, targeting, and messaging, and then how we measure that. And Nick, I know you're involved in that, and you're using some AI, right?
Correct.
So we definitely want to talk about that. But Sean, why don't we start with you about the proper process for lead generation?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Well, something I think a lot of people struggle with is who do we target and how do we target the right people? And my belief is really that the messaging, helps the right person find your ad and your opportunity, and they self-select that they're interested based on what promises and what things you're saying and your advertising. So your landing page copy, your ad copy is a big source of your targeting. Messaging really, again, helps the right people opt in and the wrong people opt out. So I always think that you should put some restrictions in your copy, particularly on your landing page, about maybe who this is not a right fit for, so that people know. Like, then again, you're not making promises that that this works for everybody, or that it's for the operator who doesn't ever want to operate. You got to set some expectations, and I think that helps attract the right crowd. And there's all sorts of different platforms. Were you gonna ask another?
No, I'm listening.
Okay, no worries. There's different platforms to advertise, and I think we find a lot of success between Meta and Google. There's kind of a constant struggle there. There's an idea in marketing to be omni-channel, be everywhere all the time, and I find with a lot of emerging brands, you don't have the budget for that. If you take too few dollars and spread it across too many channels, you're going to be unsuccessful in all of them. So I think it's good to start with one demand gen platform like Meta, where you can broadcast your message to a wider net. You can have a video that attracts people into your brand, and then something that captures that demand that's already there, like a search platform such as Google Ads.
Thank you. So, Nick, Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing at Sobol, because I know you've been successful. I remember when Jason launched the brand, 10 years ago, somewhere around there, and now you're up to 100 or near 100. So obviously you have a particular way you go about identifying who your, I'm going to use the word perfect, not perfect, but near perfect franchisee should be, and then how you tailor the message to that person.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a lot of trial and error. Everybody that's sold a franchise, I'm sure, is aware that not every lead is going to be this super successful franchisee that you thought that they might be in your initial conversation. And so during our beginning stages, we tried everything. We tried meta ads, we tried Google ads, we worked with brokerages, we've tried PR, we've focused heavily in SEO. And what we found is, in our best franchisees are actually our customers, our best customers in the beginning. And that's where we saw initial success, as we had a lot of demand from people, seeing us online through social media, trying our product, being super excited about the brand, and then eventually asking, how do we get involved? And so that was our key to our initial success. And then eventually that will dry up, right? We find that, we open in a new market, maybe the store is not as successful as our corporate locations. We got to try new things. So we moved heavily to Meta, and we saw a tremendous amount of lead generation, which was exciting for our brand, and the top of our funnel was full. But without the proper systems in place, we really found ourselves sort of wasting a lot of time contacting these leads that were not qualified. Maybe it was our targeting, maybe it was our creative that wasn't exactly the right fit for our brand. But so that, again, had us shift into more of an SEO, more of a PR focus, being in trade publications, ranking in all these different awards, which I believe plays a factor in our success of acquiring more leads once they landed to our website. But again, really identifying who our target franchise buyer might be was aligned with our experiences. And so today, we've created profiles for each of our different franchise prospects, and each of those profiles sort of match what our marketing efforts are. So, a person looking to leave their 9-to-5, that message might be more geared towards a targeted meta ad or a Google ad, if you will. That's really geared towards obviously exiting your 9-to-5, changing your life, joining Sobol, and then our messaging strategy once they do fill out a lead inquiry is all in regards to that. But to the point of just creating that buyer persona is so valuable today, and it has been for the past, I would say, 7 years, once we really started to dial in our sales process, has changed our approach for all of our success.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Your buyer's persona may fall into different silos. If they come from an executive background, or if they come from a blue-collar background, or if they've been in business already for themselves, that messaging should be tailored to them. And then also, if you look what I have up here, this omni-channel lead generation mix, I have this saying that goes like this. It says, nothing works a lot, but everything works a little. So I'm a believer in, again, and it's budget restrictive. You have to carefully plan out your budget. Some people have said trade shows don't work, trade shows are dead. Okay, we did a trade show back in February, January, and we sold a franchise out of it. And all you have to do is sell one, and it not only pays for the show, but it's one more in there. Things like print and direct mail, there are places where you might want to do lead generation, like Franchise Times or QSR, or even some direct mail. You can get lists. Rafael, I know you do some things with lists of people who are interested in business. We'll ask you about that in a minute. And then, of course, SEO and making sure you have content that lives online. So we do press releases. We do a lot of press releases because what we believe is the more content that lives online, especially third party, if you get picked up by a newspaper or you mentioned about an award, the more of that stuff that lives online, when that person goes and Googles acai franchise or cookie franchise or whatever it is they're Googling, that content could come up. So if you have good, relevant, fresh, can't be something from 17 years ago, but relevant content, it's going to be served up, and that's going to obviously help people find you through your website. So, Rafael, tell us a little bit about some of the other ways that at Executel, I know you do cold calling and things of that nature.
Yeah, so I think that is important to something that they both already mentioned is the budget and the type of people you want to attract. So depending on that is the way you have to decide how you're gonna go out there. Specifically, Executel, let's say, for example, we started everything more like organically instead of actually investing, let's say, in trade shows and stuff. That's how where we started with the cold calling campaigns, because hiring somebody, let's say, from Bogota, Colombia, it's a fraction of a cost of potentially hiring somebody here to do the cold outreach. Eventually, we evolved to also have LinkedIn outreach. We have to be really careful on the way we're gonna try to attract those candidates and be really respectful of their time and make sure that we don't create a brand that it's gonna make a lot of noise to them. So it's important to be super respectful, you know, be timely manner, reach out different ways until we manage to get something from it.
Yeah, and that's a great point. For those of you who have not invested the time in building your digital footprint, I strongly recommend you invest 15 to 20 minutes every single day, 5 days a week, developing and expanding your digital footprint. In the last probably 8 or 9 years, I've built my LinkedIn up to about 21,000 people that follow me. I get leads all the time. I get people just hitting me up, hey, I read an article, or I saw your post, or whatever, and we get leads. Doesn't cost any money to do that. It's an investment in time. So I would strongly suggest that increasing your digital footprint, and to Rafael's point about, you know, being respectful and reaching people on LinkedIn, when people connect with me on LinkedIn, we immediately we put them on a list. They're either franchisee or franchisor. All the other people, you know, the vendors and the suppliers, that's okay. But they're either a franchisee or a franchisor. And we've developed a newsletter, for example, that we have 2 editions, one for franchisees, one for franchisors. Those are lead generators. So don't think it's only being on Facebook, only being on Google. There are a lot of different ways to generate leads. Now I want to just switch a little bit, because let's assume we've got leads. What happens next? So I'm going to talk to Aimee here a little bit and say, okay, talk about the process. The lead comes in, okay? What happens next if it's going to be done the right way? Because I know everybody's got a different way of doing it, but there's only one right way.
Well, there's a lot that takes place, but if I can go back a quick second, because I do think it's important to also note that what Nick said, you have to know what type of lead, what type of franchisee you're looking for, right? And it's important for the sales team to know what you're looking for as well. When that lead comes in, it is speed to lead, because time does kill deals, because you don't know how many other companies they inquired about as well, right? So we are right there, front line, calling those leads immediately and pre-qualifying them as soon as we get them on the phone. And pre-qualifying, I think Gary alluded to the top 5 questions that we ask them on a pre-qualification call. You know, what it looks like for them to become a franchisee, how they're qualified in their eyes, where they live, is all important, right? Because we know we're not registered in every registration state, right? So I think that's an important piece. And then moving them to the next stage or step in the process of disclosing them and getting them that FDD. But the next step, to me, is all important, which is making sure that they review that FDD and they have, you know, their list of questions. You know that they're engaged at that point and hopefully are going to be moving forward.
Yeah, and absolutely, and that's what we do. And for those of you who are not our clients, maybe you're a client of another FSO, or maybe you're doing this on your own, let me just see a show of hands. Who's using a CRM to handle the leads? Okay, great. Who do you use, by the way, Ben? Okay, we use Pipe Drive. Who do you use, Scott? Client Tether. Okay, all good. Client Tether I love. Pipe Drive I love. Some I don't love, but those two I love. I don't know about too much about the one. I don't know. I don't know about it. I can't comment on it. But why?
No
Why the
comment.
Why?
I plead the fifth.
Why the CRM is important, because to what Aimee is talking about, that speed to lead, when that lead comes in, within seconds, they're getting a welcome letter from us. And that welcome letter is not only an immediate engagement, there's also some questions, like we usually, if I'm not mistaken, every letter we use will usually sort of towards the end talk about, please let us know the best day and time to reach out to you so we can share details and answer your questions. And that becomes critical, because when a person replies, like right away, within an hour or so, wow, you got a hot one on the hook, so to speak. But if you let that lead sit there for 3 days and then you say, oh, I have time because I've been running my store, now I have time, I can call the leads, those people are gone, okay? You'll just be leaving messages forever. So speed to lead and automation is key. Talk to us a little bit, Nick. Talk to us about how you qualify a lead when you get the person on the phone. What's sort of your spiel?
Yeah, so I'm more on the technical side, right? I'm texting or calling our leads to get them on the phone, but our head of sales, who I join calls with, we're very much open about the opportunity to be a part of Sobol, but really what the opportunity looks like. And we don't sugarcoat Sobol to any of our leads, right? Every lead is potentially changing their entire their life to be a part of our brand. So it's very important that we stay as transparent of what the opportunity is that they're getting involved in. Obviously, we don't share financial data until they receive their FDD, and we're giving them what we can. But ultimately, that initial conversation is similar to how you guys are operating. Is those pre-qualifying questions. Do you meet our financial criteria? Are you the right fit? Do you fit our mission, vision, values, right? If you're somebody that really doesn't seem like you understand the franchise model, or you want to be the creative and you want to introduce new products and you want to take our brand to this new world that we're not ready for, then we kind of we end the conversation there, and it was great to meet you, and we hope you all the best. But typically those conversations are very transparent, and if they go well, they'll receive their FDD, and we'll take it from there, right? And we'll schedule our discovery day. And again, if the process continues, we'll eventually get to the point where we're signing the deal. But from the beginning stage, there is no, we're not giving anybody anything sugarcoated. Everything is as direct as possible, because we've never gone down that route, and we're proud to never have gone down that route. Not saying that we have perfect franchisees. We've definitely had some horror stories similar to what we've heard, and but ultimately, those get stopped when you're honest with your franchisees from day one.
Yeah, thank you, and I think that's a really good point. Sean, Sean does website development as well as lead gen. So on some websites that I've been on, none of our clients are using chatbots on their franchise website. What are your thoughts on that?
I think AI has a place, and humans close deals, but I think AI, whether it be through chatbot or voice agents or whatever you might be using, I think has a place to kind of get the conversation started in some way. If it's a chatbot that connects you to a real human, even better, as long as that human's available, and there's a team of people that likely would have to be connected to a CRM. But I think there is a value in having something, as long as you can keep it compliant, that allows basic Q&A to happen. And maybe even starts pre-qualifying to some extent.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we've looked at, and Aimee and I have looked at, and we've talked about, how AI responders, how vocal AIs that actually call people. A couple of years ago, we looked at an early iteration of AI, and it was very easy to fool the AI on the phone. I would ask it 2 or 3 questions, and the thing would just go around in circles. But today, some of the AI callers that are out there are unbelievable. I mean, we've looked at a few that, and there's a reason I'm bringing it up, because at the top of the funnel is where time kind of gets clogged up. The these AI agents are absolutely amazing. They sound like human beings. They will call your lead back. They will make notes in your CRM. If they leave a message, they will call the person back again, and you can set up how many times you want them to call. If the person picks up the phone and let's say they speak in Spanish, the AI will immediately start speaking in Spanish. And although, who said humans close deals? Okay, I'm going to use that because I like that. So you can't sell a franchise from a text message. Well, I guess maybe you can. I don't know. I've never sold a franchise through a text message or through an AI. You need to have that human interaction. You need to understand who that person is. You even need to have that face-to-face meeting, that confirmation day, as we call it. We don't call it discovery day. We call it confirmation day. We'll talk about that a little later on. But at the top of the funnel, so we're getting, at FGS, we're getting anywhere from 600, 700, I don't know what the top, Fred, what was like the top number we ever got? 800, 900 leads? 1,200 leads in a month. Okay. Most of them are trash. So you could either have a real life person calling all those folks, which we do, or you could have an AI do the top of the funnel and kind of skim that off, skim sort of the crappy ones off the top, okay? So don't, everyone's talking about AI, but a lot of people have a lot of negative things to say about AI. I happen to think AI is just another tool, and how you use it and where you use it can be very helpful. If you use it in the wrong way and in the wrong place, it could kill a deal. So that's what I want to say about AI. Aimee, you mentioned, I alluded earlier about the 5 questions that we ask, the 4 or 5 questions we ask. When you get somebody on the phone, hi, what is that conversation? Because I think it ties into what Nick said. Because earlier I said we want to not eliminate, but we want to qualify people. Here's what we're asking people on the very first telephone call.
Yeah, so again, I always like to get to know them a little bit and have it not be a checklist of things that I'm asking them, right? I want them to feel comfortable in the conversation because by the end, I am going to be asking them how much money they're working with, right? And what their budget looks like and where they're looking to open and how many units they're looking to open. So I do like to establish that comfort level right off the bat with them and establish that rapport with them. But those are the top questions that I ask, where do you live and how much money do you have and when are you looking to open and where are you looking to open?
Yeah, and all of that is done with sort of, it's not a checklist, it's conversation to build rapport and to build trust and to really start to engage with that individual, not just to understand the facts of how much money they have, but really to start to assess whether or not the brand is a good fit. And that's really key. Drip campaign letters are something else that we use. Lead comes in, maybe they're unresponsive. They go into an unresponsive channel, so to speak, in pipe drive, and then they're hit with a series of letters. Rafael, drip campaigns, what are your thoughts on drip campaign letters and effectiveness?
So the way I see it is that, as you mentioned earlier, everything is important, and the most important question is understanding why people buy. So there are 3 reasons, and if you align your brand to them, you are not just selling franchises anymore, but you're building lasting partnerships. The first is problem solving. Most candidates aren't looking to buy a job. They want a business that runs even when they step away. Imagine creating a system that is so good that you can take 2 weeks off and it still operates smoothly. That's the proof your concept is ready to franchise, because replicability is everything in this business. The second reason is emotional desire. Most people buy because they dream of freedom. So how you showcase how your brand delivers peace of mind and lifestyle change is you stop selling a business and you start selling the life they want. And the third one is social identity. People buy to belong. Franchisees want to be part of something bigger, a movement, a culture, a vision. They want to proudly say, I'm part of this because it represents success, freedom, and leadership. So when you position your brand around these 3 reasons, create a system that solves issues. You can, the second one will be create a movement that people wants to join. And once you deliver, and once you show what the lifestyle your franchise deliver, then that's what really, change everything, and you start building a foundation of loyalty and growth.
And I think the loyalty piece is big. And the loyalty, this is sort of almost our first telephone call, what we do when we're on the phone with someone. Obviously, we're building rapport, discussing benefits. We're highlighting the product and the business model. And then we're confirming things like territory and, their position in their investment capital. We don't move into a presentation until we sort of know that. Because once we know that, then we can talk about not the features of the franchise, but the benefits of owning one. And when you switch from selling features to selling benefits, now you're connecting with the individual. So, Nick, how do you find out what is somebody's hot button? What do you ask them on the phone?
I mean, it's a very, like, you're almost dating, right? You're asking questions as if you really are trying to get to know this person, because you are trying to get to know this person. It's not about a transaction in the beginning, especially. It is about finding out if this person is going to live the brand, if they're going to be a part of your life for the next 10 years, if you're going to be comfortable with one another, if they're going to follow your processes, work well with your team, right? That's a whole other element to this. Is, maybe they're great at, they understand the food industry, they understand managing their staff, but they don't understand how to communicate with their peers, or they're disrespectful to your corporate team. Like, that doesn't fit our build. And we've been down that path, and so it's important that you ask those questions early on. You don't have to always be super direct, right? It could just be a casual conversation on, how do you like your current job? What would you say about your current employees or your coworkers, right? Like, a true interview can really sort of solidify what that person is like on day one. And then throughout the sales process, you learn a lot about someone throughout the sales process, right? How quickly they sign their paperwork, how quickly they respond to your messages, what their negotiation tactics might be, or what their questions are, how they approach those questions, right? We get a lot of people that will give information, and they'll sort of have this negative response to the information we're providing. And if it's not justified, or if it's not, a real question, it's just to kind of pick apart, our brand. We've learned right there that they're going to do that with every single thing that we put out there. So that's kind of how our process is we truly try to date to marry, right? We're not looking for one-night stands. We want to be married long-term, and that's how we've approached it.
Great. And there's a whole lot to unpack there, and I'm going to go to Sean in a minute. But first, can everyone just go like this, please? Everyone just do that? Okay. So, see how easy it is to get someone to do what you want just by asking? Okay? That's the point. Okay? If you ask someone to tell you about, so what do you do now? They'll tell you. They love talking about themselves. So I can't tell you how many times Matt and I have had conversations, and she'll know that she can't book the appointment next Tuesday night because the guy has to take his kid to soccer. How do you know that? You know that because you've built a rapport on the phone with the person. But as it relates to learning about the person and giving the marketing company, giving Sean better information, or information from the telephone calls that we do, so that he can better target his, not only the actual targeting, digital targeting, but also the messaging. We do a monthly call, we call it an FSO call, but we do what we call a feedback loop. So, Sean, how helpful to you when Aimee and I are telling you, hey, John Doe got into the confirmation day category, and these 3 people got, and you're tracking ads and things. Talk to us about that, because it's not just a one and done on the advertising.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I just want to say I'll offer up this free resource I made around this topic. There'll be a link, I think, at the end, but it's on our website that basically helps you figure out more about your ideal customer profile. It's just a worksheet, self-guided, takes no time at all. But anyway, yeah, to the feedback loop, there is a digital component to it, something that really has to work through your CRM, that can literally tell Google or Meta, whatever platform, which leads are good and bad by how you've marked them in your CRM. That's not something I do manually. That's something that actually happens through an integration. So having the right software stack is really important. But on those FSO calls, it is really helpful to get that feedback about what's working, because we can go back to our leads list and find which ad that they clicked on. And if we notice trends about certain messages that work or don't work, or ones that produce a lot of the bad leads, that helps us change things up for sure.
Yeah, and that type of sort of feedback and research and going back and changing this and fixing that, again, that is not something that, unless you have someone in your office, a salesperson, dedicated to that, or an FSO dedicated to that, I can only tell you that if you attempt to do this on your own, you could get good at it, but the challenges are you won't have enough time to get dedicated to it because you'll have 200 other things that you're doing. The next step sort of in the process is, the FDD. So this one's for Aimee. When we do that qualification call and then we do a presentation on the brand, our goal is to send them an FDD. But not everybody gets an FDD. So Aimee, tell us who gets the FDD and why, and then Nick, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Only those people who check those boxes of the 5 questions get the FDD.
Yeah.
And we've now implemented our FDD follow-up call, where we make sure that they've actually read the FDD by asking them questions about the FDD. And if they appear to have not read the FDD, I will go through with them on that call, because it is via Zoom, and I will pull it up and show them exactly what they're supposed to be looking at, or we feel is helpful for them to understand in order to get to the next step. We don't want to put them in front of you guys, the franchisors, if they know nothing about your brand or this business opportunity.
We've been embarrassed that way before.
So we really try to ensure that, we cover some of the bases first, because we want them to take a deeper dive with you. We don't want them asking you questions about item 7, right? How much does it cost me? Well, it's right there. So we go through all of that with them first, so that we could get them to take a deeper dive with you on that executive call.
And Nick, you mentioned about having that conversation with them and whether or not it's a good fit. How do you determine? Again, I know you work with a salesperson there on sending the FDD.
Yeah. I mean, it's really it's a meeting with not only our head of sales right now is fantastic. He's actually a former franchisee. That's how he's been a great asset to our brand. Now, that process is we don't get as many leads as you guys do. Not nearly even as close. We'll maybe get 30 to 50 a month. So it's very manageable to have sort of in-depth conversations with our leadership team and these prospects. Now, Joe, our head of sales currently, he certainly has some leeway into giving people access to our FDD. He has a set sort of a standard of what that buyer persona looks like, or what that person looks like that is allowed to receive our FDD. Whether or not he follows that every single time, he still has a commission structure, so he's looking to make deals. But at the end of the day, we are still sitting with those franchisees from a leadership perspective, and similar, sort of asking them some form of questions to see if they've actually read the FDD, because we've gone down the path where somebody doesn't have any questions on the FDD, and they're just like, oh yeah, it's great, let's do this thing, let's sign the deal, and either they disappear later on, or they sign and we really still don't know enough about them.
Yeah.
Or they don't know enough about the brand to actually effectively open their store or run a successful Sobel.
Yeah.
So
usually the person that's so enthusiastic, I want to buy the whole state of Ohio.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to do. Those are the people that disappear.
Yep.
And for us, the sort of where they fall into the abyss is when they're sent the FDD. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. One of which I believe is they see it in writing, and they go, "Oh, this is for real." I just called them up to have a little fun. I wanted to learn about it, and boy, now this is for real. What we've done, and I will admit, I was a very reluctant participant in what I'm about to tell you, okay? Aimee's laughing, because Aimee and Fred basically had to beat me up to have me create videos, these little slide videos that when we speak with someone after a presentation call, it's automated. Again, if you have a good CRM, it's automated. We send them out this little video that reiterates, so here's what we just talked about. Here's what it costs. Here's the timeline. Here's how this all works. And that sort of reinforces it in their mind. When we send an FDD, we will tell them, usually on the call, over here you see these numbers, because we'll tell them, you're going to get this document from DocuSign or from the franchisor's attorney, and it's like 250 pages, and don't flip out. At some point, your attorney will read it. But for our next call, remember, we want to test them to see if they read it. On our next call, we know what you want to know. You want to know how much does it cost? What's the fees? Do I get trained? How does the advertising work? Do I get a protected territory? And how much money do the other stores make? So we will tell them, read item 5, 6, 7, 11, 12, and 19, and leave everything else for your attorney for the next call. And I think that has some good use, because when they get it, they're not overwhelmed. They're more likely to read it and more likely to get on the phone with us. So another question for Aimee here. So now we're at the FDD follow-up call. What's the goal of that call?
Well, definitely to find out, make sure that they read the FDD. But now, if they have read the FDD, I don't like my microphone, by the way. There's something going on here. If they have read the FDD, as I said before, we want to move them to the next stage, right? So we want to make sure that this is a good fit for them, but they also check the boxes for you guys, the franchisor, right? So we're trying to match this up and make sure that it's going to be a good working relationship from what we know at this point. And now I'm prepping them. I'm prepping them for the executive call. This is what you need to be prepared for. They're going to ask you questions about you, who you are, how you plan to fund this, when you're looking to get started, and we're asking them the questions of, are you planning on needing financing? Should we introduce you to a lender at this point so you could get that ball rolling? Yeah.
Yeah, and what Aimee's saying about the executive call, again, being an FSO, different from what Nick is doing. So Nick's the franchisor, or with the franchisor, so he's speaking to people who he knows he's going to be putting in front of other folks in his organization. For us, we're putting leads that have called us about a specific brand in front of our clients. So we want to make sure they are properly prepared before we put them in front of our clients for an executive call. So we tell them, hey, be prepared to answer this and be prepared to answer that. So just staying on the FDD for a minute, Sean and Rafael, start with Sean. Having information from the FDD, whether it's website, whether it's advertising, how is that information helpful to you or not?
An item 19 is my favorite gift. A really well-written item 19, full of good, juicy numbers is exactly what we want. AUVs would be great. We've seen, obviously, all sorts of different ways to promote that, or put something together, whether it's corporate store revenue, if you don't have any franchisees. But certainly want to have
juicy
rich,
numbers,
juicy,
to use
juicy item
your
19.
terms. Rafael, how have you used FDDs in sales and marketing and maybe even in cold calling?
We're going to use it in the way that we're going to identify what are the selling points, what are the most attractive things to showcase for them to pick up their interest and then transfer them over to you.
Yeah, and FDDs can be useful, by the way, as lead generators. We have a program at FGS called Lead Harvest, where when we have time, we actually will go through FDDs of other companies, because you know at the back end of the FDD, every franchisee and their contact information is listed. So we will go through those FDDs and start dialing for dollars. So when we launched a brand called Home Frite, a burger brand which we love, and they're doing great now. I think they're up to 5 or 6 units. They would be here today, but they're down in North Carolina opening a new unit. I went out and I got the FDD for Five Guys, and we started just calling and seeing if we could generate interest. So again, the FDD is a selling document. That's how I look at it. A lot of people look at it as a deal-killing document. And by the way, if they're written, no disrespect for any of the attorneys in the room, but sometimes attorneys can write FDDs that are they read horribly. They're just onerous, and it's just okay. So what we like to do is clean up the FDD so that it becomes a selling tool, whether it's as part of the sales process, as part of the lead generation process, or even making sure that the franchisee understands what they're getting into. That's a big part of it. Aimee mentioned funding, and I think earlier we talked about legal review. Again, that's really key. And somebody said earlier, the sooner the better with the funding. I think it was Scott maybe had said that. That takes some time. You heard today from Benetrends, and you heard today some of the things that Edith shared with us about SBA and all that other stuff. So if you identify in that first call, let's say your concept is a $600,000 turnkey and the person has 200 grand, you better introduce them to financing ASAP, or you're going to just be wasting your time when you find out 5 weeks later that they can't get funded. So I think that's a big piece. And then, of course, making attorney introductions, advising them, recommending them. A lot of what we do with our clients, we won't take on a client that is willing to sign a franchisee who has not had their franchise agreement reviewed by a franchise attorney. I don't know how many other FSOs can say that, but I know we say that. We don't sign people up who don't have advisement and counsel, period, end of story. So introducing them to attorneys, or just telling them, hey, Google franchise attorney. And by the way, that's not like your brother-in-law Larry who, helped you with real estate, or, your elder attorney. It's a franchise attorney.
Larry's a good guy, though.
Yeah, okay. So the executive interview, and again, I don't know how you do it, Nick, but at some point, your salesperson and you are taking that candidate to the next, I don't know if it's Paul, at some point, the CEO of the company, the president of the company is meeting that. What's that in your process?
Yeah, so they obviously they go through the typical standard timeline of new inquiry. They have a conversation with our sales team. They get remarketed maybe a little bit. They sign their FDD. They eventually want to do a discovery day, or I'm sorry, what did you?
We call it a confirmation day.
I like that.
I'll tell you why later on.
Yeah, I'll bring that one back. So we'll try to involve some form of our leadership into the confirmation day, where they visit one of our locations, meet with a franchisee, obviously ask as many questions as possible. And we try to incorporate Paul, who is our president and COO, into those conversations if he's available. If not, we'll schedule a Zoom or a Google Meet with Paul, where it is very much an interview style, where the prospective franchisee is maybe not prepped for his conversation or her conversation with Paul, but more so, seeing if they gel the same way that our head of sales is, or myself. That conversation is typically somewhat intense. Gary knows Paul. He's a pretty serious guy, or he can let loose, but he's a pretty serious guy, and he likes to make sure that the person on the other end of the call is feeling maybe a little bit uncomfortable, to see if they are truly the right fit. And if they do pass that conversation, we'll move them to Jason, who's our CEO, much different personality, very go with the flow, fun kind of guy. And if they gel as well, which, typically they're gelling much more than they would with Paul, we will then take the final steps in signing the agreement.
Paul, in all fairness, Paul's very stoic. He's a great guy,
Yeah.
very stoic. Jason's on a surfboard.
Yeah.
Okay, just to kind of give you the
For sure.
the thing, just the differential there. With respect to the executive interview, I remember when Aimee started working with us, we started talking about the interview. Understand, this is the first time that the candidate is meeting you, the franchisor. We may have had 3 or 4 or 5 conversations with them. We may have had God knows how many text messages with them. So what we do, and I often joke, for those of you who have ever seen The Wizard of Oz, I think you all have, there's a line in there that I think someone said to Dorothy, nobody gets to see the wizard until they bring me the broomstick of the Wicked Witch. Okay, well, all those telephone calls that we do before we introduce the candidate to the franchisor is sort of the broomstick. Okay, so if they get through that, they now get the privilege of meeting the CEO and the founder of the company. This here also, by the way, psychologically is why you don't want to inject yourself too early in the process. If you make yourself too available, a couple of things happen. Number one, you devalue your position. And maybe that's old school, but trust me, in people's psyches, that is important. You devalue your position. Secondly, it doesn't necessarily show the candidate that there's much of an organization. And the sort of the visual I use is, you know, you're sitting on the plane at LaGuardia, and the guy that's putting the bags underneath and the whatever they call that on the plane, all of a sudden comes up the ramp and he's the pilot. Okay, you have a problem, right? Okay, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So the executive interview call and how the purpose of it and the preparation for it is really, really important, because I think you said Paul puts them under a little pressure.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to do the same thing. We want, by the way, for those of you who've ever been on a job interview, it's a ton of pressure. You're nervous about it. Sitting in front of a franchisor being interviewed should also be pressure. And it also takes away the idea that they're the buyer and they call the shots. Okay, you definitely want to take that concept right out of their hands.
I would like to add there that it's important that you also feel the way that they need you more than you need them. Because if you are like, you know, from the perspective that you think you really need it and this is the only lead I have and I really want to close it, then that effect will never come into place and they will not follow you, which at the end of the day is what we want to accomplish.
Yeah. I mean, we have a candidate, and Aimee can attest to this. We lost 3 deals in a month, or maybe in less than a month. Okay, the franchisor sort of takes what we say to heart and will not, and we tell people now, franchisor will not negotiate. Take the FDD to your lawyer, but the franchisor is not going to negotiate. This is not a negotiable instrument. Okay, we want you to get advice from counsel, understand what you're getting into, but please don't send us back a list of comments and a list of requests. Okay, because we're just not going to address it. And why we take that position is, again, it creates value. You might lose deals, but it creates value in the mind's eye of the buyer. So I think most people would tell you that, you know, if they were going to buy a franchise or get involved in a franchise, if they could own a McDonald's, I'm going to use a McDonald's because people think of it as the pinnacle, that they would kill to own a McDonald's. They wouldn't dare send McDonald's Corporation a list of requests and demands. Now, you might say, well, I only have 2 units, I'm not McDonald's. Guess what? You should start thinking like that or you'll never be McDonald's. Yep. Okay? So negotiating franchise documents, you know, very, very difficult to do. And part of that rapport, part of that loyalty, part of that understanding happens at what we call Discovery Day or Confirmation Day, which you'll see here. These are the reasons for it. Again, we'll send you these slides. But Nick, the difference, why we say what we say. When someone is discovering something, that's at the very beginning of the process. I'm discovering, okay? I think in a legal thing, your discovery starts, that's up front, okay? But Confirmation Day is now you're coming in to meet the franchisor, you're coming in, you're going to go to a few shops, you're going to go to the office to confirm everything that you've been told, everything you've read, everything you heard from other franchisees. So psychologically, it's very different because once we do Confirmation Day, we want to close that deal in, what, 2 weeks?
Ideally.
Ideally.
Ideally, but again, you know, and we're prepping them for that day as well and telling them that the Confirmation Day is exactly that. You are confirming everything that you have learned to date, whether it be from the sales consultant or from, you know, the executive call, the FDD. their job at that point, to confirm everything that they have learned up to this point, meet their support staff in person, see the restaurant or the music school or the massage parlor, whatever the case it may be. You are confirming and you're seeing it from a different perspective now. You are not seeing it as a customer, you are seeing it with an owner's eye.
Yep, and that's important. And when I do confirmation days over at Cookies and Cream, I get to eat ice cream and cookies. Yeah, Scott.
Can I ask a few questions on confirmation day?
Please.
How many parties do you have? Are they scheduled days during the month? Is it like one day
Sometimes we do groups and sometimes we do one-on-one.
and sometimes you do one-on-one? And I'm assuming the franchisor pays for it?
No. No.
What do you mean?
Let me just repeat the question. So they are coming to corporate office. So the question is, does the franchisor pay for Discovery Day? So let me just back up. So a lot of the brands we deal with are emerging brands. And if I have a brand in Bronxville, like Joe's brand here, we're not entertaining franchisees from Houston, Texas. We don't want franchises in Houston, Texas. We want to build concentric circles. That's our strategy. We develop the brand. Now, part of that has to do with the fact that we kind of focus on food service brands, so we have a supply chain issue. So we can't be having one unit in Miami, one unit in Houston, one unit whatever. So it's supply chain. So for us, we don't have people typically fly in and spend a hotel. We have on a few occasions, and that's on them. Sometimes a candidate will say, well, will the franchisor pay for that? And we will talk to the franchisor, and on occasion we've had the franchisor say yes if they sign a franchise agreement within 10 days of the discovery day or the confirmation day. We'll reimburse them for that. We'll reimburse them for that money. What we have found is the moment of truth in the process is when they have to pay for an attorney or pay to fly in for a confirmation day. It's sort of like when you're ready to buy a house. Everybody looks at houses. A lot of people are just looking for decorating ideas, okay? But at some point, if you're interested in the house, you're taking $500 or $600 out of your pocket and you're hiring a home inspector, and you may not buy the house.
Is it do you require them to come to confirmation day?
Some of our clients do, some do not. Some will do the confirmation day on Zoom. I don't recommend that. I'm a people guy. I'm an energy guy. I gotta meet that person. But
All
some
about the
clients do.
vibes.
Even if it slows down the process?
Slowing down the process, again, when we talk about time-killing deals, it's about the friction or stopping. If there's still momentum, whether it takes 60 days, 90 days, or 120 days, that's not really the issue because it's self-paced and we want to keep it comfortable for the potential franchisee. We don't want them to feel pressured at any point because then they'll drop out.
And that's where we tried to stay intelligently in touch, right? And we stay in communication with them. There are other steps that they need to complete during that time anyway when we're scheduling that confirmation day, whether it's completing their franchise application or hiring that franchise attorney. And I emphasize franchise attorney because people have hired regular attorneys. And then we get that laundry list of things that they want to change in the FDD, and then it's just declined.
Nick, from confirmation or discovery day to close, typically, what's the timeline?
I mean, it sits around like 30 to 40 days right now.
Yeah.
Probably longer than we'd like, but
Yeah, we say we like to do in 2 weeks, but it never is really 2 weeks. Okay, so preparation of franchise agreements now. Again, once you've done that confirmation day and we get a strong commitment from the franchisee or potential franchisee that they're ready to go, Nick, what process do you use when they say, yeah, I'm in, and the franchisor approves them? What's the next step in Sobol?
yeah, I mean, then we involve legal. We get our attorneys involved, we get their attorneys involved, and they get their agreement. And that's pretty much the basis of it. Obviously, we're in constant communication from when we can be. And then, yeah, I mean, I could talk about the post-signing or the post-agreement being signed, but that's pretty much it. We get legal involved right away.
Are you doing any credit and background checks?
Yeah, we do a background check on all of our candidates. I mean, we haven't had to deny anybody yet, but yeah, we still do.
Yeah, some of our clients do. Matt, I know you developed a process for quote closing the deal with data sheets and all that stuff. Maybe you want to share with the audience.
Well, after they have hired their franchise attorney and all, questions, comments have been reviewed, we advise them to establish their LLC at that point, or their entity, really. Can you hear me? Is this working? I
Yep.
don't know if it's working. Okay.
It's working very well.
Okay, sorry.
That's why I keep moving it away, because it's popping.
Oh, sorry.
So we're hearing you.
Is
just
that better?
fine. Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Then once they have their entity established and they are, approved by corporate, we have our request for franchise agreement that we complete with all of their, prop spelling of their name, their address, their entity information, their franchise attorney information, so on and so forth. We submit that to the attorneys and they drop their franchise agreement, and we wait for the franchise attorney to send that out to them. And then once that's completed, we send out their wiring instructions for their franchise fee for however many units they decide to sign up for. And once they have wired and it's been received and it's confirmed that it's received, then the franchisor will countersign and we make it official and congratulate them on becoming a franchisee and becoming part of the team.
And they get scheduled for an onboarding.
They
Now, of course, we don't send wiring instructions or collect money if the franchisor is doing business in what's known as a fee deferral state. I won't get into that right now, but basically means you can't collect the franchise fee until the shop opens or until the franchisee opens up. Sean, just from a lead gen point of view, because you spend a lot of time with us, understanding the intricacies of this process, how has that, and it may not have, but how has that helped you in creating messaging, targeting for adequate lead gen of qualified franchisees?
Yeah, I was really just going to mention this. Like, the partnership that we have, I think, is really unique and an opportunity that maybe not everybody has. Sales likes to blame marketing, marketing blames sales, and that's a game that can happen inside your own organization or with two different companies. If you hire a different agency from your FSO, maybe there's different, they'll point the finger at each other. But I think what we have is a good working relationship. We understand each other, and our methodologies, work well together. And so I'm able to take the feedback and use that to improve our systems, to make changes to how we develop landing pages or what questions we ask in the forms, the lead gen forms. So everything that we hear directly at those calls really helps us improve our process for sure.
Yeah, so if you're doing this on your own or you're working with a different FSO and you're not doing, again, we call them a monthly FSO call. If you're not doing that, you should be doing that. If you're attempting to award franchises on your own, again, meeting with your lead gen source and having deep conversations about virtually each lead. We talk about the ones that we call in the advanced pipeline. Obviously, those are people who kind of get to the FDD stage. Those are the ones we're sharing with Sean. But we also look at unresponsive rate. So Sean knows we run, and actually we deal with about 4 different lead gen companies, and they all know that we know that the industry statistic is 60% of all the people who ever make an inquiry, 60% of them will never call you back, will never reply. We run about a 40% because we're relentless. But what we make sure Sean knows is, hey, whatever you're doing ain't working, because that unresponsive rate went to 50% or 55%.
We never have that
No,
conversation.
I know we don't. I'm just exemplifying it, okay? Make believe, okay?
Yes.
But we do have that conversation with some lead gen companies where the unresponsive rate is 60% or 65%, or the unqualified rate is 30% or 25% of the people that we speak with don't have any money. So, that means maybe the messaging isn't correct or maybe the targeting isn't correct. So a lot that goes into it. Go ahead, Sean.
You just want to add real quick. It used to be too that we'd have some amount of invalid leads where they gave us incorrect information, and that can still happen. But one just tip I would give to everybody is that nowadays you can use a one-time password in your form. So somebody, in order to submit it, has to get the code to their phone, and that annoying thing that we all hate. But it does verify that that phone number is real. So you could say 100% of the time that they have a legitimate real phone number, or you could do the same with email. You're going to get fewer leads, but those leads you get will be real, at least to some extent.
Yeah, and I also think it sort of underscores their desire to follow a process and follow a system. If they're not willing to fill out a form, if they're not willing to sign the FDD receipt or show up for a presentation call, you know what they're telling you? They don't like to follow the system. And franchising is all about following a system. It's not about reinventing it. I know this morning we heard on the Rogue thing about two-way streets and a voice, not a vote. And yeah, all that's fine and dandy. But there are some people who they cannot follow direction. They refuse to do that. You can usually determine that right up front, right up front. So, any other, yeah, Scott.
I have questions for each one of you. What's the percentage of leads that you're getting that you're closing? That turn into a franchisee?
100%.
No, no. Well, wait, hold on. So first of all, let's talk about the industry average as spoken by the Franchise Leadership and Development Conference and Franchise Update Media. So we didn't make these up. It's 1 out of 200 and, what is it, 58? 253. You need 253 leads to sell one deal. Now, that's a consolidated number of people who have no franchisees and big companies, okay? So what we know is we need about 250 leads in the beginning for a startup to sell one deal. And that number goes down. We call it the cost per acquisition. That's what we actually look at, the cost per acquisition. How much money do I have to spend in advertising to close a deal? It's about $15,000 to $20,000 to close a deal. In the beginning, because there's no validation, there's no franchisees for them to speak to and get other information. So you're looking for the person who is buying that franchise purely on passion and purely because they bought into the founder of the company. As that develops, that number goes down. It's 1%, 1 out of 100, 1 out of 150, 1 out of, I think with cookies and cream now, we're probably down to about 1 out of 120.
We sat on a Fran Connect webinar a few weeks ago, and I think the industry average in 25 is like 1.75%.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that, because again, what happens when they give those numbers is it's consolidated. So you're talking about Taco Bell and Dunkin' Donuts and Joe's Pizza. Okay, so the number can be skewed. I can tell you we deal with primarily emerging brands and startups. So the number I'm giving you is very relevant to startup and emerging brands. And again, until you sell that, I'll tell you very quickly. So we started working with Cookies and Cream. I think we launched the advertising in December of 2023. Might have been January of 24. We sold the first franchise in April. Fortunately, that guy had a location which was approved, and he was a contractor, and he opened in June. So it took us like 7 months to get that first one established. So from June of 2024 to June of 2026, Joe, how many franchisees do you have now signed up? 19. And how many open? 11. By the way, we keep the sold to open ratio really low. If a franchisor is like getting all excited because they're selling 100 franchises and beating their chest, we just slow the process down. Because we don't want to be involved in that. So hopefully that answered your question. Any other question? Yes?
Can you talk about cost, your cost? Like, how much does it cost to hire an FSO to get them from 280 to, because I, as a franchisor, I'm not a franchisor today, but that's obviously, I need to understand that for my budget.
Yeah, some FSOs will charge $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month for advisory and management, and then you will pay them for advertising, and they do the advertising. We don't do anything like that. So the first thing we do is everything is transparent. So if you're hiring a marketing firm, you're working directly with Sean. We're not white labeling that. If we recommend an equipment vendor, you're working directly with the equipment vendor or a real estate company or any supplier. Now, why we do it that way? A, it's transparent. B, we don't have to manage it. And more importantly, we want to make sure, again, we deal with startups and emerging brands. So if the franchisor is ill-equipped in terms of things like supply chain or real estate or equipment or construction, we want to bring that all in front of the franchisor so that they can actually deliver that service to their franchisee. Because if they don't, they're not living up to their end of the bargain, and the whole thing's going to fail, and we don't get to sell more franchises. So for FGS, since you asked the question, we charge $2,500 a month for all the advisory, all the operational. We get very involved, and I don't know any FSO that does this. We get very involved in the manuals. We get very involved in the FDD. You can talk to, we have a couple clients here, you can speak to them. But the reason we do that is we feel that the better the franchisor is to service the franchisee, the more success they're going to have. So we leverage and we do primarily restaurants. We do non-restaurants too, but it's primarily restaurants. So we leverage our restaurant experience so that we can show a franchisor how you get from 2 to 20 to 200. So it's $2,500 a month, and we get a commission when we sell a deal. And commission is half the franchise fee, but you generate the leads.
Yeah, and
we don't generate the leads.
On the lead gen side, different agencies are going to charge differently, but also I would recommend looking for an agency that tells you very clearly how much is going to their management fee and how much is going to the advertising itself. Oftentimes we see that lumped together, and then you don't actually know how much is being spent in ad.
Yeah. And one of the things we do on the FSO, I don't want to turn this into a commercial for FGS, believe it or not. I know you don't believe it. What we do on those FSO calls, okay, and in a loving way, we hold Sean's feet to the fire, or the folks at C Squared Social or Top Fire Media, because before we start the meeting, they have to give us KPIs. How much money did we spend? What's the cost per lead? How many impressions did we get? And then we talk about lead quality, and then we get into everything else in the meeting.
Yeah, Gary turns into the bad cop real quick.
I turn into bad cop real quick because I don't want, again, we want to sell franchises, but more importantly, I don't want to see my clients, just waste money and spend money on things that are not effective. It's not good for them. It's not good for us. Any other questions or statements? Does the panel have any last word on this topic?
The only thing I wanted to say was, again, we know that sometimes it takes a little while to get the advertising right? And making sure that the algorithm is working and that we're fishing in the right pond, right? So I think Sean appreciates the feedback that we provide, so he can gear the message and the marketing the right way.
Absolutely.
And Nick, you're giving your media company feedback, I'm sure somebody is doing, or are you doing it in-house?
We're doing some of it in-house, and we're doing it, we outsource an SEO and PR agency as well. Thank you. But that, obviously there's a cost associated with that. You have to pay my salary and our franchise salesperson and everything else that goes into it. I think also to add, I think CRMs are very valuable, obviously, but they've changed a lot. I think when we first started in 2016, CRMs, Fran Connect or Salesforce were like the big CRMs to get involved with. We spent an ungodly amount of money on a CRM that we were not equipped for, we did not need. But in today's world, that's such a different, it's just completely different. So you can get by with a pretty affordable CRM that has great functionality. And from a lead gen standpoint, our first deal was at the Javits Center. We did our first deal at the IFE. It was great. It validated our brand, and it got us a lot more franchisees after that. Everything else, again, snowballs after you get that first deal. But to everybody's point, I mean, be very weary of that first deal. Don't rush it. And if you do the right things and you follow what everybody's been saying, that will turn into plenty more deals outside of that.
Yeah, two things I will add to that. One is don't discount things like franchise shows. Okay, and I'm not a huge lover of them, but again, nothing works a lot. Everything works a little bit. And to Nick's earlier point, don't rush that first deal. And there's a cost associated with becoming a franchisor, and you need to budget that out, and you need to sort of wrap your head around it. My mom used to say, if you're going to get up and dance the whole number. Okay, dance the entire number. If you're not prepared financially or philosophically to be a franchisor, don't do it. It will be the worst decision you've ever made in your life, trust me. I'm not looking to push anybody away. Scott, you've got 142 units out there. You're managing people's expectations every single day. 220. Where did I hear 142? Okay. Hey, wait a minute. He just said something really good.
Track the applause,
Okay,
everybody.
so validation. Whoever asked about cost. Okay, so validation. He's got how many? 221 units. Okay, 221 units with 140 or so franchisees. What does that mean? That means people are happy with the concept and they've got another unit going. Charles Watson, before Tropical Smoothie Cafe was sold, I had him on my podcast, and he told me they were opening up. I was blown away. They were opening up like 296 new units that year, which is like amazing, right? 296 or whatever the number was, and that 190 of them were with existing franchisees. So that's validation. Anything else? All right, so it's 4:30. I think we're on time. If there are no other questions, again, we're walking over to Bryant Park and having some drinks and food and what have you. You're welcome to join us. Big round of applause. Oh, wait, Sean wanted to say something? Did you want to say something?
Sorry. There was supposed to be a QR code.
They were all up there.
Oh, it's up there.
For
Okay.
10
all right.
minutes, yeah.
All right.
Okay. And again, just let us know if you want the content. Round of applause for our team here. And I want to thank, obviously, I want to thank the folks at ADP, who really, none of this would be possible here if not for ADP loaning us this room and really being great partners in all of this with us, and their support of the franchise industry. Again, don't want to turn this into a commercial, but I will tell you that if you are not speaking to Ted or the folks at ADP, you should, because it's not just about payroll. It's about a lot of other things that ADP can afford you, and that will make you a stronger franchisor, and that will make your franchisees better franchisees. So thank you for attending, and we'll let you know when the next one is.